You're not stuck, you're programmed. And the worst part? You helped write the code. Most people walk through life like cargo, boxed, labeled, and stacked where others want them. They wake up not because they want to, but because the calendar, the kids, the job, or the debt told them to. They say things like, "That's just life," and call it maturity. In reality, it's resignation dressed up as responsibility. But here's the truth they won't tell you. No one is in control of your life unless you hand them the wheel. And most already have, willingly, silently, every time they said yes to things that killed them slowly. Every time they swallowed the anger, avoided the hard talk, procrastinated the decision, or blamed their job, their past, or their parents. That's how people lose control. Not in one catastrophic moment, but in 1,000 tiny compromises that eventually become identity. Let's be clear, freedom is not granted. It's seized. You don't earn it through comfort, approval, or waiting your turn. You take it back with blood-cold clarity and unapologetic discipline. That's the Stoic way. That's the victory Stoic mindset. In the next few minutes, you'll hear exactly how to dismantle the traps that have kept you obedient, small, and silent for years. Traps you didn't even realize were traps, because the world applauds them. If you're done living on autopilot, hit like, share this message with someone who needs to wake the hell up, and subscribe to this channel. And if you've got the guts, drop a comment with one of two things. Either your battle cry, your personal line in the sand, or the moment you realized you had given up control and decided never again. Don't expect this to feel good, expect it to cut. But that's how truth works. It doesn't comfort, it confronts. What you'll hear next isn't gentle wisdom or cute affirmations. It's the hard edge of clarity, forged by ancient philosophy and modern failure. And it will either piss you off or pull you out. Either way, you won't be able to unhear it. Because after this, no one and nothing will ever control your path again. Number 1, no one controls you unless you hand them the keys. Your boss humiliates you in front of the team. Your partner throws a passive-aggressive jab at dinner. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly your whole day spirals. But here's the brutal truth. They didn't make you angry. You did. Every time you feel controlled, it's not because someone else pushed your buttons. It's because you gave them the remote. Carl Jung put it bluntly. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. You rage not because someone disrespected you, but because some part of you still believes what they said might be true. The insult lands because your ego is still bleeding somewhere beneath the surface. You don't get defensive unless you're already insecure. You don't lash out unless you're still wounded. That's not strength, that's reactivity. And reactivity is the currency of the powerless. Stoicism understood this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "Remember that it is not he who insults you who does you harm, but your opinion about his insult." It's not the event, it's the interpretation. Someone slaps a label on you, lazy, weak, useless. It only sticks if you decide to wear it. Let's make it real. Imagine a man named Tom. He's 43, middle management at a tech firm in Dallas. Every Monday, his boss casually implies that Tom's team is underperforming. Not outright criticism, just a tone, a look, a raised eyebrow. Tom stews. He spends the rest of the day snapping at his staff, getting home late, avoiding his wife's questions, drinking more than he should. By Wednesday, he's burned out and bitter. But here's the kicker. The boss never actually insulted him. The whole collapse began in Tom's mind. One interpretation turned a comment into a crisis. He gave away control with a look. Why? Because Tom still carries a belief he absorbed decades ago. I'm not good enough. One comment confirms that fear, and the emotional landslide begins. The real enemy wasn't his boss. It was the unexamined narrative inside his own head. Psychology backs this up. Dr. David Burns, author of Feeling Good, explains that our emotions follow our thoughts, not the other way around. You don't get mad because something happened. You get mad because of what you told yourself it meant. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, the most evidence-based form of talk therapy today, is built entirely on this principle. Change the interpretation, and the emotion changes with it. So how do you take the keys back? Step 1. Pause before interpretation. The next time someone says something that feels like an attack, catch yourself before reacting. Literally say in your head, "That's interesting," instead of "That's offensive." This mental pause is like a firewall. It gives you time to choose instead of react. Step 2. Interrogate the belief. Ask yourself, why did that bother me? If the answer is because it felt true, now you're digging. Now you're in control. You're not defending a wound anymore. You're exposing it to the light. Healing begins there. Step 3. Reframe the meaning. The Stoics taught that external events have no meaning until you assign them one. So practice assigning neutral or empowering interpretations. Your partner's criticism, maybe it's a cry for connection. Your boss's silence, maybe he's overwhelmed. Or maybe not everything is about you, and that's liberating. A simple exercise you can try at home: reaction journaling. At the end of each day, write down 3 moments when you felt triggered. For each one, note what was said, how you reacted, and what belief it touched. Then rewrite the belief as if you were someone strong, calm, unshakable. Do this for 7 days, and you'll begin to see a pattern. The people who control you aren't actually the problem. The pattern of thought inside you is. And let's be real, this isn't about being passive or soft. This is about not letting strangers, coworkers, or family members live rent-free in your head. When you stop reacting, you don't become weak, you become untouchable. One more quote, less known but devastatingly true. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You can have money, muscles, followers, respect, but if anyone can yank your emotions with a sentence, you're not free. You're owned. The leash is invisible, but it's tight. Cut the leash. Take back the keys. They were never theirs to begin with. Number 2. Ego is a hand grenade with a loose pin. The moment someone disrespects you, the countdown begins. Not because they've done something catastrophic, but because you're already holding the grenade. One look, one tone, one post. You yank the pin, and boom, you blow up your own peace, your own relationships, your own sanity. The ego doesn't wait for war, it creates one. In the wild, animals puff up to look bigger when they feel threatened. Humans? We do the same, but we call it pride, or self-respect, or not letting anyone disrespect me. But underneath that armor is a fragile mechanism. The ego, always scanning for threats, always ready to explode at the first sign that we're not being validated, admired, or deferred to. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just escape your own." What he meant is simple. Other people's behavior is not the problem. Your ego's reaction to it is. Let's take someone real. Brian, 47, owns a successful contracting business in Phoenix. Built it from scratch, hires local guys, runs a tight crew, smart, respected, makes good money. But here's his weakness. If a client questions his quote or tone checks his team, Brian flips. Voice rises, jaw tightens, day ruined. Why? Not because the criticism is valid, but because it feels like disrespect. And to Brian's ego, disrespect is unforgivable. So what happens? He storms out of meetings, fires back with sharp emails, tells himself he's not letting anyone walk over him. But behind that tough posture is a truth. His self-worth is still hostage to other people's opinions. He thinks he's in control, but the minute someone pokes the right nerve, they're driving. Brian isn't steering the car. He's in the passenger seat, yelling. That's the thing with ego. It wants to be worshipped, not questioned. It treats feedback like an attack and disagreement like betrayal. And as long as you live by ego, you'll keep handing out your piece to whoever presses the right button. That's not freedom. That's emotional slavery dressed up as toughness. The Stoics knew this. Seneca warned, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Translation? You fear losing face like it's the end of the world, but chase admiration like it's your divine right. That contradiction is what makes ego so dangerous. It's both deeply insecure and absurdly arrogant. Here's the E. Ego is like a balloon animal at a kid's party. It looks impressive, fun, colorful, but poke it once and it deflates, and then comes the tantrum. If your identity is built on inflation, titles, likes, compliments, respect, you'll always be one pinprick away from collapse. So how do you disarm this ticking device? First, practice voluntary exposure. Put yourself in small situations where your ego will itch, but don't scratch it. Let the barista get your name wrong and don't correct them. Let someone cut you off in traffic without flipping them off. Let your spouse win the argument even when you've got facts in your favor. Why? Because every time you choose not to defend your ego, you train yourself to control it. Second, create distance between identity and image. You are not your job title, not your follower count, not your body, not even your past. Those are costumes, not character. Strip them off, and what remains is who you actually are, and that person doesn't need applause to breathe. Third, replace offense with curiosity. Next time someone triggers you, ask, what exactly in me felt disrespected? Is it the need to be right, to be seen as competent, loved? Dig until you find the fear underneath the fury. That's the real issue, not the guy who talked to you sideways. There's neuroscience here too. Studies on the default mode network, the brain's autopilot mode, show that when your identity feels threatened, your brain activates as if you're in physical danger. That's why ego reactions feel urgent, righteous, and unavoidable. But they're not. You can override them, not by suppressing, but by noticing, by naming the impulse, and by choosing differently, even once. Here's a small but brutal exercise. For 3 days, let yourself be misunderstood. Don't explain, don't clarify, don't defend your reputation. If someone thinks you're wrong or rude or weak, let them. This isn't about being passive, it's about proving to yourself that your peace doesn't need anyone else's approval to exist. You'll feel the ego scream. That's the point. That scream is your leash snapping. And here's a less quoted gem from Stoic teacher Hierocles. We must loosen our attachment to externals, for they are the chains by which fortune binds us. One of those externals, your public image. When you let it go, you stop being owned by other people's reactions. You stop being a grenade someone else can pull. Brian eventually learned this after losing 2 major clients and nearly his marriage. He started asking himself, what am I really defending here? Most of the time it wasn't principle, it was pride. So he stopped reacting, started asking questions, paused, listened. And you know what happened? People started respecting him more, not because he demanded it, but because he no longer needed it. That's the paradox. Ego demands respect, but loses it. Humility doesn't need it, but often earns it. You don't become powerful by inflating your ego. You become powerful by making it irrelevant. Number 3. If you don't know what you stand for, the world will assign you a role. When you don't know who you are, the world won't leave you alone. It will rush in to decide for you. Society hates a vacuum. If you're not clear about your purpose, values, or direction, don't worry. Someone out there has a plan for your life, and it usually benefits them more than it benefits you. In modern life, this shows up subtly, but persistently. You're not sure what to believe politically? Here, take this ready-made outrage. You're unsure about your career? Here's a list of top 10 jobs that make you 6 figures by 30. Don't know what you want in a partner? Just follow the algorithm. It'll match you with someone who checks all the superficial boxes and none of the deep ones. This isn't a political problem, it's a personal one. The same thing happens with careers. Someone says you should go into tech. It's where the money is. And so you spend years chasing a title that pays well but feels like swallowing sand every morning. You succeed, but not on your terms. And then you wake up at 40 wondering how the hell you got here. But the truth is, you never chose this life. You just said yes to someone else's plan. Same with relationships. If you don't know what you value, you'll fall for charm over character. You'll chase chemistry and call it destiny, only to find out later that shared trauma is not the same thing as shared purpose. You'll believe that love should feel like a movie, and then blame your partner for not being a screenwriter. Without clear standards, you don't choose your partner. You just end up with someone. The Stoics had a word for this kind of drifting, akrasia, the state of knowing what's best but failing to act on it. Seneca warned, if a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. In other words, it doesn't matter how fast you move if you don't know where you're going. You're not sailing, you're drifting. And when you drift, you don't land, you crash. So what's the fix? It's not complex, but it is uncomfortable. You have to define your internal compass before you accept external input. You have to write your own code before someone else installs theirs. Step 1. Define your non-negotiables. What do you value more than comfort, money, or attention? Is it integrity, freedom, depth? Write down 3 values that you'd be willing to make uncomfortable decisions to protect. This is your spine. Without it, you'll bend to every trend and every opinion with a confident smile and a hollow heart. Step 2. Choose your metrics. Don't measure your life by income, followers, or approval. Choose metrics that reflect growth, peace, and alignment. Example: how often do you keep your word? How often do you feel proud of your behavior when no one's watching? How often do you say no to things that don't fit your values? Step 3. Filter everything through those values. Job offer, new partner, political stance. Don't ask, is this popular? Ask, does this fit who I am becoming? Let every big decision become a test of your own system, not someone else's template. And for God's sake, stop outsourcing your ambition to someone else's algorithm. Your feed is not your future. Your job isn't your identity. Your family's expectations aren't your destiny. If you don't choose what matters to you, you'll live your entire life performing for people who aren't even paying attention. Try this. For 1 week, track every time you say yes to something you didn't actually want to do. Every yes that should have been a no. At the end of the week, count how many times you betrayed your own priorities to avoid discomfort, awkwardness, or rejection. That's your map. That's where the work begins. You are not clay waiting to be shaped. You're the sculptor. But you have to pick up the chisel and decide what you're carving. Otherwise, you'll be molded by marketers, media, your parents, your peers, or the pressure of being liked. They'll dress you up, sell you back to yourself, and call it success. And you'll nod, smile, and wonder why something still feels fake. Musonius Rufus, often overlooked among the Stoics, once taught that philosophy is nothing else than to search out by reason what is right and proper, and by deeds put it into practice. That's your job, not to copy someone else's code, but to write your own, and live it relentlessly. Because if you don't, you'll spend your whole life being managed, and the worst part, you'll think it was your idea. Number 4, emotional control isn't retreat, it's royalty. A dog hears a noise and barks. No hesitation, no filter, no thought. That's instinct, that's biology. But you're not a dog. You're not built to bark at every discomfort, snap at every perceived threat, or chase every car that insults your dignity. You're built for command. Not over others, but over yourself. The world tells you that controlling your emotions is repression, that you're bottling things up, that real strength is being raw and honest. But the truth is, uncontrolled emotion isn't honesty, it's chaos. And chaos is not power. Chaos is what happens when no one's in charge. Stoicism turns this lie upside down. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Control is not suppression. It's precision. It's sitting at the eye of the storm, with your hands steady on the wheel, deciding what happens next, while everyone else is reacting like they're on fire. Take James, 39, a firefighter in Ohio, trained for chaos. One day his captain chews him out in front of the team for a mistake he didn't make. His heart spikes, his pride burns. He wants to shout back, but he doesn't. He breathes, he says, "Understood," and walks away. A rookie might think he backed down. But that wasn't surrender. That was sovereignty. Later, his captain finds out the mistake was someone else's. James doesn't rub it in. Why? Because he's already moved on. He didn't let one false accusation take the wheel. He stayed in the throne room. There's a big difference between avoiding your emotions and commanding them. Avoidance is cowardice in a mask. Command is courage under control. The man who pretends he's not angry is lying to himself. The man who knows he's angry but doesn't let it hijack him. That's someone to follow. Picture your emotional world as a palace. In most people, the guards, anger, fear, shame, have staged a coup. They run the halls, set the fires, make the calls. The king is locked in the basement, wondering why everything feels so volatile. Taking back control isn't about banishing those guards, it's about reminding them who sits on the throne. Now, what does this look like practically? First, build a pause protocol. Neuroscience shows that the amygdala, your threat response center, takes 90 seconds to surge. If you can wait 90 seconds before speaking or acting when triggered, the prefrontal cortex, your reasoning brain, reclaims control. When someone pushes your button, start the internal countdown. You're not avoiding conflict, you're staging a coup to reclaim your crown. Second, name the emotion, don't become it. Instead of saying, "I'm furious," say, "I feel fury." This tiny shift rewires your brain. You are not the emotion. You are the observer of it. You're sitting at the round table, listening to your inner advisors, but you're not obeying the loudest one. Third, practice calm under small fire. Let the barista get your order wrong. Let the meeting go off track. Let the email tone be condescending. Every time you resist the urge to react, you're training for real power. Not because you're passive, because you're choosing your battles and your battlefield. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, said it best. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is your kingdom. Most people never step into it. They just react, like the dog, like the child, like the prisoner of impulse. But not you. You're building a different muscle. One quick exercise. For one day, narrate your reactions silently. When you feel irritation, say in your head, "I notice irritation." When you feel judgment, "I notice judgment." This builds meta-awareness, what Stoics called prohairesis, the faculty of choice. Once you can name it, you can change it. And if you're wondering if this makes you cold or robotic, ask yourself, who do you respect more? The person who stays calm in crisis, or the one who flips out when they forget their charger? Leadership doesn't scream. It doesn't flinch. It sits, quiet, present, waiting, like a king drinking tea in the middle of a siege, not because he's unaware of danger, but because he refuses to give it control. That's the man or woman people follow. Not the loudest, not the angriest, the one who holds the line while everyone else breaks. Because in the palace of self, the real ruler is the one who doesn't need to announce they're in charge. Number 5. The more you cling to the outcome, the easier you are to control. I just want things to go according to plan. That sentence, harmless as it sounds, is the battle cry of control freaks everywhere. It's the subtle beginning of panic, rage, burnout, and disappointment. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Plans are fantasies. Control is a myth. And the more you chase it, the more it owns you. Most people live like gamblers at a rigged table. They put in the effort, they play by the rules, they expect a payoff, then scream betrayal when reality doesn't play along. But the house always wins. Not because life is cruel, but because life is uncontrollable. Van wat levothuan, everything changes. The Stoics didn't just accept this, they built their entire philosophy on it. Epictetus put it sharply, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. You control your effort, your integrity, your attitude. That's it. Everything else, people's responses, results, timing, weather, markets, your own health, is a coin toss wrapped in mystery. Take Melissa, 45, a marketing director in Seattle. She's meticulous. Her calendar runs tighter than a military drill. Her team knows she likes things exact. She preps for every meeting, rehearses every pitch, triple checks every slide. And then launch day comes. A client delays funding, a team member gets COVID, the campaign tanks, Melissa loses it. Not because she failed to plan, but because she expected planning to shield her from reality. That's the trap. Effort is noble, precision is admirable. But when you secretly believe your effort guarantees your outcome, you've created a new kind of slavery, one where your peace is hostage to results. That's not mastery. That's emotional dependence dressed up as discipline. This isn't about giving up or lowering your standards. It's about upgrading your target. The Stoics didn't aim for success. They aimed for excellence in action. The process, not the prize. The practice, not the applause. Because they knew, the more you obsess over the result, the more others can manipulate you. Want to see how this works? Watch politics, watch business, watch media. The moment someone knows you need something specific to happen, a promotion, a like, a win, a certain impression, they own you. They just dangle that result like a carrot, and you'll chase it until you're exhausted, bitter, or burned. Imagine you're holding water in your hand. Try to grip it tighter, it slips through your fingers. But if you hold it lightly, it stays. That's how outcomes work. The tighter you squeeze, the more control you lose. So what do you do instead? First, detach from results without detaching from purpose. You can still care deeply, still work your ass off, still aim high. But the moment you need a specific outcome to feel validated or calm, you're in chains. Shift the focus. Did I act with clarity? Did I stay true to my principles? That's a scoreboard no one can rig. Second, expect disruption as part of the game, not a glitch. The Buddhists call it impermanence. The Stoics call it nature. Neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett calls it prediction error, the gap between what we expect and what actually happens. If you train your mind to expect change, you don't crumble when it comes. You adapt. That's anti-fragile strength. Third, practice outcome detachment daily. Here's a tip. Pick one thing each day where you focus only on effort, not result. Maybe it's a conversation where you don't try to convince, just listen. A workout where you ignore the PR and focus on form. A project where you stay present in the process. At the end of the day, ask, did I do my part well? If yes, you win, regardless of the score. There's a quote by Cleanthes, the lesser-known Stoic, that hits deep. Lead me, Zeus, and you, fate, wherever you have assigned me. I will follow without hesitation, but even if I am unwilling, I will come nonetheless, for fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Translation: you're going either way. You can scream or you can steer. Control isn't about forcing life into your script. It's about preparing so well that when the script gets rewritten, you don't fall apart. It's about showing up with such consistency and principle that outcomes become almost irrelevant, because you already know who you are. Melissa eventually learned that lesson. She still prepares, still pushes, but now she ends every meeting with a phrase she stole from her therapist. Let's see what happens. And oddly enough, things go smoother. Not because the chaos stopped, but because she did. When you stop demanding that life obey your checklist, life becomes less of a test and more of a training ground. You show up, you deliver, you release. And in that release, you find something wild, calm, authority, peace. That's what the Stoics aimed for, not perfection, not control, not certainty. Just this, doing your part so well that you don't need to grip the rest. Because the man who stops chasing control is the only one who finally has it. Conclusion: nobody and nothing will control you again. It's done. The leash is off. The mask is gone. The script has been burned. From this moment forward, nobody and nothing will control you again. Not your boss with his passive-aggressive tone. Not your past with its shame-soaked narrative. Not your cravings dressed up as goals. Not the fear of missing out. Not the need to be understood, applauded, or liked. You see it now, clear as day. The world never had the power. You just never called it back. But now you have. You've stared down the hidden mechanics of manipulation, ego, outcomes, image, need, and you've stripped them of their disguises. You've watched how easily a man can be led by his own desire, how quickly he'll surrender his sovereignty just to be approved by strangers. And you said, not anymore. That's not rebellion, that's return. Return to self, return to clarity, return to a life where your emotions don't run the show, where your peace isn't collateral for someone else's agenda, where your worth isn't measured in likes, checks, or applause. You didn't just learn Stoicism. You applied it. You chose stillness over noise, discernment over drama, principle over performance. And in doing so, you became something rare in this world, unshakable. So now the challenge is simple. Stay there, hold the line, keep the crown. And if this message struck a nerve, good. That means it found its mark. Like this video to keep the fire burning. Share it with someone who needs to wake the hell up. Subscribe to Victory Stoic if you're building more than muscle, if you're building steel in your mind. And in the comments, drop one of two things: your personal commandment, the line you live by, or your moment of clarity, the exact second you realized you were no longer owned. Because this isn't just a video, it's a marker, a turning point, a declaration that whatever controlled you yesterday won't touch you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. But more importantly, thanks for taking back the one thing they can never steal unless you hand it to them: you.